Welcome to a Pulp Event podcast, brought to you by the Pulp Net, your link to the online world of the pulp magazines, since 1996, online at thepulp.net. This Pulp Event podcast features a panel discussion titled The Weird Tales of Philip José Farmer, which was part of the FarmerCon, running concurrently with PulpFest. The panel consisting of Jason Scott Aiken, a fantasy and horror writer, and host of Pulp Crazy, a blog and podcast, author and essayist Frank Schildiner, and illustrator and researcher Chuck Loridans. FarmerCon's Win Scott Eckert begins with a few words.
So I'm Win Eckert. I'm one of the guys who helps put on the FarmerCon here year after year. Also work with Meteor House Publications. And I just want to say, very pleased to be here for our 5th year running for FarmerCon 10. And thank you very much to all the folks at PulpFest for continuing to host us. And this has been a really great partnership for us. So thank you for having us. Very quickly, Meteor House is launching 4 new books. Please drop by our table. We've got 3 new Opar books. We've got Exiles of Ko, which is a prelude in the Opar series. We've got Had On, King of Opar, which is the 4th book of the series. Both of those are by Christopher Paul Carey. And then we actually have Philip José Farmer's Flight to Opar, which is the 2nd book in the series, but it's got 4,000 additional words that were cut out. And so this is actually, an enhanced or restored edition. We've been able to locate his manuscript and copy edit back in many of his works. And then we're also launching a new book by Jim Beard and Dwayne Spurlock called Airship Hunters, which is kind of X-Files meets Wild Wild West, sort of. It's a fun little book. So I'm going to please hand it off now to Chuck Loridans, Frank Schildiner, and Jason Aiken, and they are going to talk about the weird tales of Philip José Farmer. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Win, and thanks everyone for coming. Today, as Win said, we're going to be talking about the weird tales of Philip José Farmer. Philip José Farmer is mostly known as a science fiction writer, and he also did some extensive work with some pulp characters. But in addition to these, he also wrote a good bit of horror fiction, and so much that a comprehensive panel would probably take too long. So we decided to focus on monsters and mythos.
Monologue.
Yes, this first story we'll be discussing is Monologue. It was published in a Demon Child anthology called Demonkind. And Chunk, you have some...
This story just creeped the hell out of me. This is one of those stories where it's so vague, you're not sure what's going on in it. That's what makes it scarier. It's told in a first person, and this is the creature talking. It reminds me of the Lovecraft story, The Other, where a guy's basically describing, you find there's a twist at the end. It's very much like that, but I think he outdoes Lovecraft in that creepiness, because the whole time you're not sure what's going on. Is this character a misshapen baby? Is it a grown creature? Is it actually there's a hint that it might actually be a woman's cancer with a personality, and you're never sure.
It's very, for a modern reference, very Clive Barker, though I think that's an insult to Phil if you read the latest Clive Barker. Yeah, please. It's supposed to be the sequel to The Hellraiser. Don't read it. Anyway, it's very internal, and it's very, very creepy when you read it. It's something not to read at night. Don't read it at night, or else you're going to really regret it.
Definitely. And it's also a play on words, monologue, because it's basically the creature's monologue. And what's really creative is all of the text in the story is in quotes. So it is actually like the
A full
creature
monologue,
talking.
yeah,
full
right
monologue.
out of the creature's mouth, basically. Very scary.
Yep. This next one is It's the Queen of Darkness, Pal, also known as the Phantom of the Sewers. This one, it's kind of like his version of, it's not really his version of the Phantom of the Opera, but it kind of makes allusions to it. It's about a sewer worker who has to go down into the sewers all this time while there's basically a sexual predator on the loose down there.
Yeah, it's kind of a play on Phantom of the Opera, but Phil takes it in a very unique direction. It's got a lot of twists and turns in it. I actually enjoyed it. It's a pretty fast, easy read. It's a good story. He did a good job with that one.
Makes a lot of social commentary too about like a caste system, like who's accepted in society, who's not accepted in society, and even in the untouchable layer of society, there's even more layers of who accepts who, and you know, Phil's not going to write anything just for shock value. It's also talking about humanity and, you know, just the human condition. And this is a very intense story, and you're not expecting the end.
No,
Not
at all.
Definitely not. Now, here is The Leaser of Two Evils. This first appeared in Playboy in July 1979, and it was later published in Riverworld and Other Stories in November 1979. And this is Farmer's take on a Jekyll and Hyde situation.
Very much so, and but it has, Phil, you got to understand, Phil was the trickster. He didn't do anything the easy route. He, you know, if he can find a route that will really make you say, wow, he did it. And in this case, when you get to the twist, it's almost like, what did I just read? I ended up going back like, yeah, I did read that. And it really plays on a lot of his themes, sexuality, as well as the system of class in people and how they treat each other.
And it's also funny.
It is.
And it's about writers.
Yes.
And you know, and it's basically, it's kind of like a jab at the moral majority. And you know, the whole thing, it's basically two sides of one person. But it's like the thing you see in the news when the anti-gay politician gets busted with the pool boy, you know. But this kind of this is, you know, before that stuff started getting heard about, and it kind of deals with that thing, the methinks she doth protest too much scenario.
Yeah, and it has a lot of also play on the way psychologists and psychiatrists deal with human beings. It was interesting. My mom is a therapist, so when I'm reading this, I can actually hear her saying, you know, I don't know how to deal with this one. You know, just
essentially to give you a little bit of an idea, this is a very moral, upstanding person who's a writer, and he's getting letters to himself. Somebody's writing him letters, and
he's a police officer.
yeah. Oh, okay.
He's a police officer.
Yeah, and it's from his sister. He's getting letters from his sister.
But he's his sister.
Well,
Yeah, that's the twist.
well,
but that's really not the
spoiler.
twist. No, he's not. We said Jekyll and Hyde, man.
Yeah, that's
but,
true. I did lead with Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah, I mean, he said Jekyll and Hyde, but he's the sister. But you
do
gotta
kind-
read to see where this goes.
And I think
there's
you do
more,
kind of
there's
figure.
more to it than
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I think you do kind of figure it's that's not the big shock. You know,
No.
you do kind of figure that out early in the story, but it's basically it's his other side who's mocking him and saying, "Oh, wait till you see what I do. Wait till you see what I'm going to do to you next." You know.
Yeah, it's got moments.
If you think you had a hangover from last night, wait till you see how you feel tomorrow morning. That kind of thing.
Yeah, it's really. Phil had an amazing sense of humor, and it really plays through there, but in a bent way. I love it, though. I love that story.
Yeah. Evil Be My Good. This first appeared in the World Fantasy Convention 1990 program book. It looks like that year it was a H.P. Lovecraft centenary celebration. It later appeared in The Ultimate Frankenstein in November 1991. And this is actually a Frankenstein story that really has ties to that original Mary Shelley story, doesn't it?
It even has ties to the historical base of Mary Shelley's story in some ways. I don't want to spoil it. Really, you really want to read this. I just wrote a Frankenstein book, so to me, this was just like getting a chance to read this again. It's like, wow.
And it even adds more heartbreaking pathos.
It does.
To the creature.
Yeah, really good stuff.
Definitely. Nobody's Perfect. This first appeared in The Ultimate Dracula, November 1991. This deals with a female agent of Jehovah that infiltrates a cult that worships a vampire.
Sort of rock star vampire. I really enjoyed this for the concept that I'm really getting tired of these concept of nice vampires, and
right.
Phil obviously didn't have any play with that because the character was definitely not so nice, but it also played on the other side of how not so nice the hunters can be too.
Well, it's also like it's like all that really needed to be said in the Anne Rice books. You know,
It should have been said,
if you
you
took
mean.
out all the glamour and the apology and the apologetics to vampires, this is what it should have been whittled down to. Just this one story, and you didn't need all the rest of this stuff, in my opinion.
I agree with that.
And to round out the big monster trio is his werewolf tale, Wolf, Iron, and Moth. This is a werewolf story. It takes place in Arkansas with a sheriff whose name is Jaeger, trying to hunt a gigantic wolf that's been ravaging the countryside. And the primary character's name is Dr. Varglick. And it's kind of a back and forth cat and mouse game between the two of them.
And he just mentioned two names, and if you know anything about Philip Jose Farmer, characters are never just randomly named things. There's always a reason for them. It takes you might have to do a little research, but they name Jaeger, and yeah, it all means something, and could even give you a clue as to what's really going on.
It's interesting also because in some ways this story plays against the modern conventions of the werewolf, but it plays closer to more of the older legends of the vampire. I keep saying vampire for some reason. Werewolf. It plays closer to the yeah. I can get it there. It's a running game, believe me. The werewolf in the original tales were very different than the ones we see today. The majority of werewolf mythology was written by Kurt Siodmak in The Wolfman, and the silver, all that stuff, that's very new inventions, and this plays closer to the curse of the werewolf from the Middle Ages. I'd be interested if Phil had some of the etchings that they did of werewolves at that period. It's very interesting.
There's also a really cool portion in regards to the transformation sequence. I've never read a werewolf transformation sequence described as Farmer does in this one. It's kind of takes it into like a biological territory. And another thing I really liked about this story was there's a magazine that only werewolves get. It's called Werewolves of the World.
Yeah.
And there's some great Farmerian humor in there. A classified ad section where one spouse is telling their other spouse, "Come home, you can use the cat's litter box." And it's just full of really funny moments
Really,
like that in there.
Right there with this very strong tale of the way a werewolf, I got it out, is they have this edge of humor which really does play into Phil. He was really, he could play on so many different levels as a writer. It's very impressive to read his work.
Here's Image of the Beast. This is actually the omnibus collection of The Image of the Beast and Blown. It was collected by Playboy Press. The Image of the Beast and Blown are kind of tough to find, but this omnibus edition's out there. Basically, this is another tale of shapeshifters, vampires and werewolves, but Farmer puts a little bit of a different spin on it. And it basically takes place in Los Angeles. It opens up with a private detective at police headquarters, and the police are showing him this snuff film of his partner being murdered in this bizarre sexual ritual, and kind of picks up from there on the mystery of his partner trying to solve what happened to him.
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting is Phil actually used a science fiction explanation as to werewolves, vampires, and other monsters. I really like that. Had a lot of unusual edges to it.
Yeah. Now we're on the Farmer's contribution to the mythos. Doc Savage, His Apocalyptic Life, first published in May 1973. He included a reference to Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness, and he postulated that William Harper Littlejohn, or Johnny Littlejohn, was also William Dyer from Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness.
The man who led the expedition, and also was a professor at the Miskatonic University.
His next contribution is The Monster on Hold. It first appeared in the World Fantasy 1983 program book, 60 Years of Weird Tales. It's been reprinted in other places since then, but it's Farmer's Doc Caliban character, and he kind of encounters some mythos-like creatures on an adventure.
Doc Caliban, for those of you who don't know, was a character in a separate world that is being ruled by a group of immortal, very evil characters called the Nine. And Doc Caliban is one of the most dangerous, strongest people on Earth that is a candidate of the Nine, one of their followers, really. And his half-brother, Lord Grunneth, is also a candidate, and they were pitted against each other because one of the Nine died. This is a rare occurrence, and they were going to take whoever won was going to be the next immortal. And there's a lot of human horror in that story. And then he followed it with two pulp stories kind of in the style of Doc Caliban and Lord Grunneth that are very interesting. And this was going to be the fourth story, but the fourth story actually was done by our own Win Scott Eckert in a short story called The Wild Huntsman. And this is the fifth, really, I guess you could say.
And the creature described in this, well, I mean, it's truly it takes your imagination places you might not want to go. It's just that, I mean, it's that, you've heard the term tentacle porn. I mean, it's like, it's mind-blowing, this creature in here. It's kind of, it'll make you shudder. It's like, no, if you've seen 100 million horror movies or read every Stephen King book, this can still take you to that, and the man was a genius.
Yeah, it's an amazing concept of this neo-pulp kind of world with a Lovecraftian backdrop as possible. It's a very interesting concept that he wrote there. The series of the Nine is very interesting, groundbreaking work.
There's also a very interesting, I'll be vague about it, a tug-of-war scene.
Yeah, be vague, please.
That's definitely, I'll be vague about that, but it's a very interesting scene in there as well. And here's probably Farmer's best-known contribution to the mythos, The Freshman. It deals with a 60-year-old man named Roderick Desmond. His first day as a freshman at Miskatonic University. And this was actually inspired by a dream Philip José Farmer had of himself pledging to a fraternity at 60 years old.
Right, and anybody who's familiar with Lovecraft and Arkham and the Miskatonic, there's all this shadowy stuff going on, but he takes you into the ordinary stuff, signing up for classes, who's your roommate in college, what are tuitions like, describing your teachers, and as with all of this stuff, there's nice little Easter eggs in there of interesting characters, but it's also very funny. It's hilarious in some ways because like I said, Miskatonic is famous. The Miskatonic University is famous in the Lovecraft books, but he kind of like fleshes it out for you by just taking you through some ordinary things about it. It's like a real college.
Yeah, it's very Harry Potter meets H.P. Lovecraft. It's got this really demented edge to it. And when you're reading it, anybody who has even a small familiarity with the mythos will get some really serious laughs out of, fraternities named after Hastur and things like that. Really amazingly well-written story with great mythos intent, but also his signature humor was really present there. I love that story. It's one of my favorites of his works.
Just describing waiting in a line to sign up for classes and describing, other people he sees in there. That's the thing that made it all real to me, that nobody else had ever done with the concept of the Miskatonic University.
He took Lovecraft's concept, the mythos, and actually put it in a very real world sense that I haven't seen until recently. Charles Stross writes some mythos things, and in his first book, he had this spy character dealing with bureaucrats and office supply forms, and even though they're there to fight the evil monsters from beyond, he still has to fill out these forms to be able to go to the lunch line, things like that. Phil did it first, though, with this by making this college that is so mythological almost ordinary, but still demented. It's amazing stuff.
Yeah, he definitely walked the line of Harry Potter, decades before that happened. And as you said, there are some cool references. My favorite and the most probably mythos related is when the main character signing up for classes, there's someone in front of them that has a paperback of it's a Robert Blake anthology in his back pocket, and Robert Blake is a tribute to Philip José Farmer's friend Robert Bloch. So I really enjoyed that.
My favorite was I'm a huge Tarzan fan, and one of his students is originally from Africa, and he's the descendant of a long line of witch doctors, and his name is Bukawai, like his ancestor. So I thought that was very cool.
I actually was getting a good laugh out of seeing regular fraternity names named after the Lovecraftian monsters. It's like, the idea that people are signing up to things to Cthulhu or to Hastur, different groups. It's like you don't want to be part of the Hasturs. They're not that, they're really not the cool people in campus. It's like, wow, what am I reading here?
This would have been a perfect humorous night gallery episode.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Or that show that was briefly in the 80s, Monsters. They have that, the ordinary, the monstrous in the ordinary, and he really covered it well with this story.
And he did plan on writing, going through each year, following this guy's career as the sophomore, the junior, the senior, the PhD candidate. He did start writing the sophomore, but he didn't get very far on it, unfortunately. But it's definitely a great concept, and I think he really did a great job executing it.
Absolutely.
Well, what it all boils down to with if Phil Farmer wrote a story with in somebody else's milieu, he did it with so much love and so much attention and so much respect because he loved it himself. It all comes from a deep love he has for this. So he was never going to do any of this stuff half-assed. He put everything he had into it, and it was with love.
That's why he was one of the grandmasters.
Yes, he's one of my heroes.
Really one of the best writers. He's the reason I'm in pulp, because back further to Doc Savage, his Apocalyptic Life. That got me where I'm sitting right here. So I owe him a lot.
Definitely. And just as a FYI, a lot of these stories that we talked about tonight, you can read them in just a few anthologies. Here's Pearls from Peoria. You can usually get a copy of this on the secondary market. This is good for a lot of those monster stories. Whatever monster stories aren't in there, it's in this. They're in this Riverworld collection. The Monster on Hold, the Doc Caliban fragments, even in there, and The Freshman, as well as a ton of very good Wool Newton universe literature is in the Tales of the Wool Newton Universe, which came out from Titan Books a few years back. So if you're interested in reading The Freshman, I'd recommend picking this one up. But that's the end of our presentation. Any comments or questions for us?
This had a nice Reading Rainbow type vibe to it. I like this. This is fun.
That's one demented Reading Rainbow,
Yeah.
man. But yeah, it's you got to be impressed by a man who can write pretty much any style of writing and manage to change the literary world. So, you know, he's definitely one of my writing heroes. Well, I guess no questions. Thank you very much. Question? What? Hold on. We got a question. Stand up so we can hear you.
It's not strictly a monster story, but what are your thoughts on After Kong Fell?
Oh,
We all love that one.
it's a wonderful story, filled with Easter eggs and also just it's Phil mixes in his own life. I mean, you kind of get the feeling that Phil was the little boy, Tim Howler. That was, you know, it's kind of like taking the real thing of going to see this movie as a child and transposing it, you know, into a world where this actually happened. And it's, you know, it's heartwarming too. It's something else that would make a great, you know, short film.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I actually thought it that way as a kid. It took a while for my parents to convince me the original King Kong movie wasn't real. It wasn't that bright, but it was. You know, my father worked in the Empire State Building. I lived in the New York, New Jersey area. I saw this movie every Thanksgiving it was shown in our area. And it took to about age 9 before I realized that it was not a real story.
Wait, it's
so,
not?
So, to me, it had like a personal moment to it. I kind of felt like I was back in my childhood reading that. Plus, as a pulp writer and a pulp lover, it had so much in it. It was so many, as he said, Easter eggs. It was just a great story, and it's in a great collection where he also wrote, I think that's the Tale of the Three Madmen.
The Adventure of the Three
Madmen with the character from the Jungle Book. Mowgli meeting up with Sherlock Holmes. So when I first read it, I got a double bonus out of that book.
After King Kong Fell lets you get that lump in your throat all over again for Kong.
And After King Kong Fell's in this book too, Tales of the Wool Newton Universe as well. So
You can't go wrong. Anything else?
since Chuck invoked Reading Rainbow, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to a Pulp Event podcast, brought to you by the Pulp Net, when your next adventure was just a dime away. Please visit us online at thepulp.net. Thank you for listening, and keep reading the pulps.